Good morning and good afternoon. My name is Michael Carter. I'm the President of the West Australian chapter of the Australia-India Business Council, and I'm delighted to invite you here today for our webinar to provide an opportunity for you to understand the burgeoning and certainly converging opportunities for both trade and bilateral investment between Western Australia and India. And of course, the way that one can best understand about those opportunities on both sides, if you like, of the Indian Ocean is ideal to have two esteemed guests here today who will be able to explain and unpack some of those opportunities for West Australian businesses looking to pursue their trade and investment opportunities in India, and particularly in the southern states of India. I'm fortunate that today we will have the Indian Consul General for Western Australia and Northern Territory, Ms. Dantu Charandasi, who will be able to provide you with a perspective of those opportunities, both trade and investment for West Australian companies. And then I'll hand across to the other side of the Indian Ocean to the Australian Consul General for South India, Ms. Sarah Kirlew. And Sarah will be able to provide, again, a framework and understanding of some of those opportunities for West Australian businesses that are looking to pursue those business perspectives in the southern states of India. So first of all, I'd like to explain a little bit about the Indian Consul General. Dantu Charandasi is an Indian Foreign Service Officer. She speaks a number of languages, including Hindi, obviously English, Telugu, Tamil, and has a working knowledge both of Punjabi and also French. She served as Director in the Latin America and Caribbean Division of the Ministry of External Affairs, Under Secretary in the Multicultural Economic Relations Division of the Ministry of External Affairs. She has also served as Consul, Head of Chancery and Information Officer at the Consulate General of India in Toronto from July 2010 to October 2013. She has also been involved in a number of high-level delegations and travelled extensively to many countries during her diplomatic career, including South Africa, Brazil, Mexico, Bangkok, Sri Lanka, Nepal, and the list certainly goes on. So without further ado, what I'd now like to do is hand across to Dantu to share some of those perspectives and opportunities through the lens of the Indian Consulate here in Perth, Western Australia. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Namaste. Thanks, Mr. Michael Carter. Nice to connect to all of you. Thanks for the kind introduction. I am very delighted to be part of this webinar and the consecutive, in fact, webinar, I should say, which AIBC had been holding even earlier last year during the COVID pandemic. And I'm also glad to connect through this webinar to Ms. Sarah Kirlew, Consul General in Chennai, India. I wish you the best for your tenure and look forward to working together with you. 2 weeks back, of course, when we were planning to have this event, it was a face-to-face event. And we know how the pandemic had been, in fact, challenging us every time. And I appreciate this initiative of AIBC to turn to webinar. And I'm glad we are back to our new normal very fast without really any much damage being done to it. When reflecting on the COVID experience, we can see that the initial shortages of masks, PPEs, ventilators, etc., which are met by ramping up production levels. The same was done for pharmaceuticals and now for vaccine production as well. In fact, this is an example of strengthening a sector even in the midst of a pandemic. India can play an important and positive role here, and we intend to do so. India supplied COVID-related assistance to over 150 countries. India today has 2 made in India vaccines, Covaxin and Covishield, with work in progress for other vaccinations. To date, we have supplied over 23 million doses of vaccines to 20 countries in our neighborhood and beyond. As on 15th February, more than 85.16 lakh healthcare and frontline workers have already been vaccinated across the country. The recovery rate has reached 97.37%, and India, with its world's 18% population, saved the world from a disaster by bringing the coronavirus situation under control by its timely and well-coordinated efforts under the leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. India's Atmanirbhar Bharat movement is committed to global good, and India playing a greater role in meeting global supply chains. The Atmanirbhar packages have accelerated our pace of structural reforms, redefinition of MSMEs, commercialization of mineral sector, agriculture, labor reforms, privatization of public sector undertakings, one nation, one ration card, and production-linked incentive schemes are some of the notable reforms carried out during this period. India has capacity, capability, and reliability, and we are moving forward with a vision of self-reliant India in the post-pandemic era, which will also be a force multiplier for the global economy. Several initiatives have been taken on incentivizing business, enabling investment and trade reforms, and opening up India as an investment destination in various sectors. India's budget 21-22, released on 1st February, is the most reformist in 25 years. India is progressing, this being the youngest, largest, and fastest, and now among the easiest countries for doing business. India has joined the group of top 50 countries in the Global Innovation Index for the first time, moving up 4 places up to 48th rank. India is working on all 4 factors of industry: connectivity, automation, artificial intelligence, and real-time data. Today, 1.3 billion plus people in India have Aadhaar cards, 1.1 billion mobile connections, and 750 million internet subscribers. Continuing with its major steps to boost manufacturing in India, corporate tax has been brought down to 75 to 15% for new manufacturing units. GST rates have been reduced. Of course, labor laws, as I said earlier, have been reformed. And in just about 4 to 5 years, India has brought over 400 million people into the formal financial sector. More than 500 million people have been provided across to free health care services. With Skill India mission, India is creating vast infrastructure for skilling, reskilling, and upskilling, and enhancing opportunities for access to employment, both locally and globally, especially with rapidly changing business environment and market conditions, which are impacted by the COVID-19 crisis. IMF expects Indian economy growing 11.5% in 2021 and 6.8% in 22, highest growth rate to be recorded by any country. Government's favorable policy regime and robust business environment has ensured continued foreign capital flow, relaxing FDI norms across sectors, including defense, PSU, oil refineries, telecom, power exchanges, among others. India has attracted total FDI inflows of $58.37 billion, recording 13% FDI growth in 2020, higher than major economies. A new India is emerging in the second decade of the 21st century. India has stood firm with regard to combating climate change and leading the way through the International Solar Alliance and the Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure initiatives. We currently have the fastest growing solar energy program in the world. The renewable energy installed capacity in India has grown 162% in the last 5 years. India is moving forward on the path of SDG implementation through well-designed initiatives. The world has changed very profoundly, with new focal points of production, consumption, resources, and markets having emerged. While they underline the possibilities that the world offers for our progress and betterment, these opportunities need to be exploited. As recently mentioned by External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar, prominent among these is the ability to harness our international partnerships for national growth and development. And that really means not just building strong relationships, but having the vision, the policies, the determination to apply these partnerships at home. With the setting of an ambitious target of creating $5 trillion economy, the network of partnership with friendly countries like Australia to create a new India by 2022, the 75th anniversary of India's independence is being developed. Development-focused approach can be seen in the interweaving of flagship schemes of national renewal like Make in India, Smart Cities, Skill India, and Stand Up India. Closer India-Australia collaboration can play a key role in our national modernization and development efforts. India's economic engagement with Australia is robust, with steady growth and a rising trajectory. When at the virtual summit of our prime ministers in June last year, this relationship was raised to a comprehensive strategic partnership level. The recent release of Australia Economic Strategy Report by Minister of Commerce and Industry in December 2020, prepared by the Confederation of Indian Industries, led by Ambassador Anil Wadhwa and KPMG India, in response to India Economic Strategy Report 2035, released by Australia in 2018, and the report Turning to India, Investing in Our Future, tabled by Economics and Industry Standing Committee in Parliament in Western Australia, are the leading growth contributors, laying down a roadmap for further advancing India-Western Australia relations. The total trade between India and Western Australia in 2020 was US dollars 1.15 billion. India-Western Australia trade relationship is just not limited to trade sectors like mining, oil and gas, education, etc. There are potential sectors like advanced manufacturing, critical minerals, mining equipment, technology and services, agriculture, health, artificial intelligence, startup, science and innovation, etc. can further enhance our trade relationship. The Atmanirbhar Bharat campaign is with a vision of making India a manufacturing and export hub. I would like to invite Western Australian-based companies to take advantage of recently launched production-linked incentive scheme worth US $26 billion, which includes 10 sectors like pharma, automobiles, and auto components, telecom and networking products, advanced chemistry, cell batteries, textiles, food products, solar modules, white goods, and specialty steel. The scheme will give companies incentives on incremental sales from products manufactured in domestic units. Infrastructure is an enabler for growth. The National Infrastructure Pipeline for the year 2020 to 2025 has been launched. By 2040, India's infrastructure needs will be around US $4.5 trillion. Infrastructure projects worth US $1.5 trillion will be implemented in India in next 5 years. As a result, sovereign funds have been allowed 100% tax relief from infra investments. India is focusing on sustainable urbanization with focus on ease of living, ease of doing business, and climate sensitive development. $150 billion were invested in urban India during 2014 to 2020. The new agricultural reforms are aimed at ensuring the objective of doubling farmers' income, unleashing agricultural marketing in India, and giving freedom to farmers to sell their produce to whom they want and where they want. As India moved from a food deficit nation to a food surplus nation, the new agricultural policies will help increase farmer income and facilitate the ease of doing business. The growing digital infrastructure has made digital solutions every day part of life in India. The digital payment system recorded 2.23 billion transactions, amounting to 4.16 trillion rupees in December 2020. India is set to become global artificial intelligence hub through tech-based skilling. Artificial intelligence software market is forecast to grow $126 billion by 2025. India is currently the third largest startup ecosystem in the world and is home to 21 unicorns valued at $73.2 billion. As Prime Minister Modi said, the liberalizing of policies governing the acquisition and production of geospatial data is a massive step in our vision for an Atmanirbhar Bharat. The reform will benefit country's farmers, startups, private sector, public sector, and research institutions in driving innovations and build scalable solutions. These reforms demonstrate our commitment to improving ease of doing business in India by deregulation. The micro, small, and medium enterprises, MSME, is the backbone of Indian economy and the second largest employment generator in the country. The MSME sector in India generates nearly 70 million and a network of 30 million units and manufacturers of more than 6,000 differential products. As a result, under Atmanirbhar Bharat, special focus is laid on MSME with Make in India strategy to facilitate investments, foster innovation, enhance skill development, encourage employment, and build a sustainable ecosystem for the MSME sector in India. After the abrogation of Article 370, Jammu and Kashmir have been transforming from a separate state to a super state. A new industrial development scheme has been approved for 28,400 crore rupees, which would encourage new investments and expansion, nurture existing industries, and ensure employment to 450,000 people. Every state in India is adopting reformatory measures to provide a business-friendly environment to foreign investor. Andhra Pradesh, with which Western Australia shares a sister state relationship, is ranked #1 in ease of doing business for the third time consequently. Andhra Pradesh government's new industrial policy 2023 released last year is aimed at providing incentives and an investment-friendly environment for certain industries in the state. The state is a knowledgeable hub and is providing high-quality, research-oriented, industrially relevant skilled workforce. Andhra Pradesh can provide skilled workforce in Western Australia, especially in healthcare sector. Andhra is gateway to the East India, and with new LNG terminals being established in the state, there lies opportunity for Western Australia in enhancing for exports further. Opportunities also exist for Western Australian-based companies to set up lithium-ion battery manufacturing in Andhra Pradesh. Western Australian-based METS companies are held in high regard, leading internationally for being technology sound. Western Australia-based companies can manufacture mining equipments in India, some of which are already existent, and I'm sure, Michael, you're also aware of this, and this can be expanded further. Indian companies already based in Western Australia have shown keen interest in expanding their footprints here. Legacy Iron Ore Limited, a subsidiary of NMDC Limited in India, is engaged in exploring and evaluation of iron ore and gold assets. IT companies like Tech Mahindra is working in the areas of mutual interest and are looking for partnering in state public sector. This will boost other IT companies who already have their footprints here, like HCL, Infosys, Wipro, and TCS. Western Australian-based mining exploration company Neometals has signed an MOU in June 2019 with Indian company Manikaran Power to jointly fund evaluation towards developing the first lithium refinery in India. In June 2020, the collaboration has progressed with the commencement of a jointly funded feasibility study. The refinery will have a proposed capacity of 20,000 tons a year of lithium hydroxide. The study will support staged investment decisions for a potential 50-50 joint venture to develop the project. The options to invest in India are extensive. Invest India is the National Investment Promotion and Facilitation Agency of India, who is also the winner of the 2020 United Nations Investment Promotion Award declared at the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development in 2020. The future of India-Western Australia relationship is very bright. There is a strong Indian diaspora in Western Australia who have always played a key role in strengthening our relations, be it culture or trade, and I'm confident that they continue to do so and will take advantage of underlying opportunities and contribute to the success of self-reliant India. Some prominent companies run by Indian diaspora include Vardhaman Group, AvidSys, Global Machinery Consultants, Australia Energy and Storage Solutions, and many are already working towards realizing the goal of enhancing the trade between India and Western Australia. Prime Minister Modi, I would just end by referring to this, what Prime Minister Modi in his speech had said at the United Nations General Assembly in New York. All our endeavors are centered on 1.3 billion Indians. But the dream that these efforts are trying to fulfill are the same dreams that the entire world has, that every country has, that every society has. The efforts are ours, but fruits are for all, for the entire world. Friends, let's make India and Western Australia relations, let's take it to the next level and work together and be partners in ensuring development and growth. Thank you and namaste.
Madam, I'd like to thank you on behalf of the Australia-India Business Council for providing us with a very comprehensive, enlightening, and certainly a passionate perspective of that $3 trillion powerhouse, which of course is incredible India. And I think it's particularly poignant at a time now that here in Western Australia, many businesses are looking to certainly de-risk and diversify into what will be the markets for tomorrow, whether they be export markets, or whether they be global supply chain markets. Throughout your presentation, there were many impressive numbers that were shared with the audience today. India is certainly all about large numbers. And for that, it's always important for businesses to be very focused in terms of the industry strength and where they're going to do business with India, which now brings me across to why we'll shortly be crossing over to South India, to Chennai, to hear from the Australian Consul General. And before I do, I just would like to say a little bit about the Australian Consul General to Chennai. Sarah Kirlew is a career officer with the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade. She's previously served overseas in Beijing, in New Delhi and Cairo. In Canberra, Sarah worked in a range of Indo-Pacific focused foreign and economic policy roles within the department, including Australia's strategy for the Indo-Pacific and geo-economic issues. Sarah holds a Masters of Public Policy and Management from the University of London and a Bachelor of Arts from the University of Sydney. Without further ado, I'd now like to cross live over to Chennai and welcome Sarah to the webinar. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Mike, and thanks everyone for having me. I'd like to acknowledge the Australia-India Business Council for taking this initiative and say how pleased I was to be invited to appear alongside my colleague in Perth, Ms. Dantu, because I think for us here in Chennai, we're very conscious that we are the Indian Ocean gateway port for Australian companies coming to India. Very much like to thank my fellow speaker for those very comprehensive introductory remarks. And I think I was struck by just how much of what I will say today echoes similar themes. And partly that's because we're at a point in the bilateral relationship where everyone is really seized of the opportunity, and both governments are very focused on making the connections that are needed to take it forward. I'll divide my remarks today into a few sections. I'll talk first about the bilateral relationship and some of the measures that are in place to help our businesses. I'll then talk particularly about the opportunities for Australian firms here in South India. And then I want to move just to a few remarks on doing business in India, a few things that Australian companies should be considering. So on the bilateral relationship, you've already heard a little bit about the elevation of our relationship to a comprehensive strategic partnership in June last year. And those are perhaps quite technical diplomatic terms, but in essence, it boils down to saying that Australia and India see a real convergence of understanding of the strategic challenges of our region, of the opportunities that we can share, and the way we want to work together. And sitting underneath that comprehensive strategic partnership is a very broad range of linkages between our governments, actually some of the most broad of any of our bilateral relationships that Australia has. So you can see that we have officials working on agricultural issues, on water issues, on maritime security issues, on energy and resources cooperation. Each of the strands of our relationship has a matching effort on the bureaucratic side to make sure that we have the agreements and understanding in place. And the Australian government is also investing in this relationship. So I really encourage you, those of you who are looking to work in India, to keep an eye on the social media accounts of our Australian High Commission in New Delhi, because there's a lot of opportunities that we are promoting there where you can pitch to government for support in your activities, whether it be in cyber, or at the moment there's an active round for our Australian Alumni Grants Scheme, which can be a way for you to kind of connect and take your business to the next level. In terms of opportunities in South India, so from our office here in Chennai, we cover Australia's relationships with the 5 southern states of India: Karnataka, Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, with which WA has a sister state relationship, Kerala and Tamil Nadu. And the reason we have a post here in Chennai is the dynamism of this southern Indian region. You know, a population of 400 million people, a GDP roughly equivalent to half of Australia's national GDP, and a lot of opportunities that arise from having a highly educated population here in South India, and also well-developed and integrated industrial systems. So, you know, 4 of those 5 states are priority states under the India Economic Strategy, and there's a range of sectors that have particular prominence. And actually, Ms. Dantu's list was almost exactly the same as mine. So she talked to you about advanced manufacturing, which is really hubbed here in Tamil Nadu in a lot of ways, but in the other states too. Innovation, tech, cyber, we like to say from cyberspace to outer space. Every aspect of that relationship is in a real growth phase at the moment, and we engage very closely with the Indian IT sector in Bangalore, but also Hyderabad and here in Chennai to take forward those opportunities. And we've had some really great successes with Australian startups, for instance, partnering with IIT Madras, the Indian Institute of Science in Bangalore, and going from there to commercialization. Agriculture and water resource management are also important sectors, and your Perth-based firm Village Energy is kind of a really interesting one that is bringing power to remote areas. Mining technologies. It couldn't be a WA seminar unless someone mentioned mining tech, but and particularly I think in critical minerals, I think there's a chance there for Australia to be selling some of our technology, some of the ways that we have increased our own productivity, and WA has a lot of expertise there. Also the health sector. So we heard some really interesting comments at the start about India's very successful vaccine diplomacy and capabilities in PPE production, but we also can think about the connections between our health research sectors, between our medical schools, and that's a particular area where I would encourage people to think about. Andhra Pradesh is a sister state, which has a new medtech park coming up that might be a base for you. And then I would add also infrastructure, and you heard about India's great infrastructure need. There are Australian companies with niche technologies that can make a big difference here. So we have, for example, here in Tamil Nadu, an Australian firm providing road safety technologies, barriers, speed reducing cameras, things like that, that can be a commercial opportunity for Australia, but also really help to reduce the death toll here in India. I had a chance to speak to your Minister for Asian Engagement, Mr. Peter Tinley, before I came here. And that was a really inspiring conversation for me, because it was clear how focused he was on the opportunities that India presents, including because of our Indian Ocean links, for instance, in terms of ship visits and maintenance and things like that, but also the proximity it's not that far from Perth to Chennai. And I think it's Stephen Smith, another great asset for the India relationship based in Perth, who used to talk about Chennai being closer to Perth than Sydney was to Singapore. And I think we need to work together so that proximity is front of mind for everyone. I'll turn now on doing business in India, but if you'll indulge me, I'll start with a few personal reflections. So as Mike kindly outlined in the introduction, I've served in India before for the Australian government. I was based in New Delhi about 10 years ago, and it has really struck me in the month I've been here in Chennai just how much India has changed, and particularly the absolute boom in e-commerce. So I think an Indian consumer is ahead even of an Australian consumer in comfort with using apps to order groceries, to order food, to interact in a really broad range of ways. And that, I think, gives you a new pathway to Indian customers that just didn't exist 10 years ago. And it increases the ease of operating here and living here in India. I think we already heard the stat of 1.1 billion mobile subscriptions. So do think about the kind of virtual side of your business, the electronic commerce side of your business when you're working here. So I've got 3 particular tips, and actually some of these would apply to any company looking to export anywhere in the world, but particularly relevant to India. The first is to make sure you are informed about the Indian market. It is a big and diverse place. And I have a prop, I'm going to hold it up on the screen, the India Economic Strategy. This is a weighty document. It's available online. You can read it by chapter, and it divides some market advice state by state in India, because each state is quite different, and sector by sector. So do start there, have a good read. Now there is the matching Australia Economic Strategy, which India has brought out, and I encourage you to read that as well. Consult the Austrade website, reach out to colleagues you know who've had success working in India, and just make sure that you know where your entry points might be to the market and what some of the ways of doing business here are. Second tip is that, like any other market, you need to invest time. So, when it's possible, visit again, but for the moment, seize those virtual opportunities to connect and get to know people, because you want to be establishing genuine relationships with perhaps an Indian partner who can help you to understand the market. So that's my third tip. Look for a good Indian partner, whether it be in joint venture or some other arrangement, so you can work together, and that will help you to get things done on the ground and understand the ways of business here. So I'm going to stop there. You've been listening to a lot of talk, but very happy to answer questions. And thanks again for the opportunity to speak to you today, and particularly acknowledge my fellow panelists. Back to you, Mike.
Thank you, Sarah. And I also want to acknowledge and appreciate the time that you've given today to share your perspectives. I know you've only just been in post for a fairly short period of time, but you're certainly no stranger to incredible India. And I think that for many businesses that are looking to pursue engagement in the southern states of India, they'll certainly be in good hands when they reach out to your consulate and also your Austrade colleagues as well in the consulate. So that's terrific. We've got a couple of questions that have come in, which I'm going to read out, and it'll be an opportunity for both the Indian and the Australian Consul General perhaps to share their thoughts, or certainly elaborate in terms of what was said earlier in their deliveries. Got an interesting question here that's just come through, and the question is, what role do you see the Indian diaspora in Western Australia, which is about 100,000 or 1 lakh in Western Australia? What role can the diaspora here in Western Australia play in supporting a closer engagement between India and Western Australia? So perhaps I might just first of all just ask the Indian Consul General, Dantu, if you'd like to share your thoughts. After all, you're here on the ground, and in an incredibly short period of time, you've certainly made a fundamental impact during your posting here so far in Perth.
Yeah, sure, Michael. I mean, it's very obvious that with a representation, I think, of around 100,000 Indian diaspora here. And as I've said, that many of them have already very well established businesses and here in Western Australia. And depending on the sectors which they are working on, they can surely, if they are themselves interested in doing business in India, they can define or kind of identify the sector which they are interested in doing, because as Sarah has just said that there are various kind of set of things that one needs to know while you are dealing with different states. And of course, the product wise, we have a geographical identification of various list of the items which identify various items from various states, which can further connect you to the states as per the requirement. So, and of course, the Indian diaspora has always been kind of looking forward in developing their own projects which are already here in Western Australia, and to make an extension in technology transfer and in health sectors, as again Sarah was saying, there's these innovative areas where they can partner. We have the artificial intelligence, which I think there's a lot that Australia can work, and in Australia, Western Australia and India can work together. So I think as I've said, there are many other sectors in which we have just defined, both me and Miss Sarah. So these are all the areas, and I would in fact urge the Indian diaspora to maybe they can actually educate the Indian businessmen who are aspiring to open up various businesses about the states, or they can approach us and Invest India. There are various kind of methods in which one can really reach out. So once the area is defined and this state and sector, then we are all here to help out.
Thank you, Dantu. And I think a key word that I picked up in your response to that question is about that awareness and how I guess we can all play a role in helping many more, both Indian and West Australian businesses here, really better understand what those opportunities are, trade and investment. I guess we only know what we know. So the more we can do with these sorts of webinars, and I know that you have some terrific opportunities coming up with the 75th anniversary celebrations, I think will be a wonderful opportunity to further increase the level of awareness for businesses looking to grow and go global and make India very much a key part of their growth plan. Sarah, I'd now like to cut across to you, if I may. There's a question that I think kind of brings in some of the things you were saying earlier about, well, okay, if I'm looking to come to India for the first time as a business, what should I be thinking about? I know you touched on a few things, like make sure you do your reading before you go and pick up a copy of the Peter Varghese report, and of course the Indian equivalent, as well as choose the right partner. Would there be any other, can I call them business tips or suggestions you could kindly share, given your experience of India and doing business there?
Sure, thanks, Mike. So yes, you've recapped nicely some of the things that I said. Those three: know your market, look for a local connection, and we were just talking about the importance of that diaspora community. And one thing I've been struck by actually is how the Australia-Indian and Indian-Australian community is very mobile. People move back and forth. It's not a kind of maybe slightly outdated perception of a diaspora community as people who move to one place and stay. Actually, people go back and forth. So you should be able to find some good connections to learn and to kind of develop those links. But a company who is looking for the first time, maybe just feeling like they want to explore the market, there's been some really good virtual trade missions done. And I'd encourage people to connect with you guys as the AIBC, but perhaps also look at the work that the India-Australia Chamber of Commerce, which is based here in Chennai but has a national remit, is doing. For instance, next week they're doing a really good virtual trade mission on technology links, looking at how companies can be connected in that field. And that'll have participation from some quite senior people and senior business leaders on both sides. So look for those to participate in. And, you know, one thing COVID has taught all of us is actually you can get a lot done on a virtual platform, and it can be a really effective investment of time to participate in some of these seminars. And then when travel reopens more easily between our countries, think about coming, investing the time, judging on the ground. Think about your customer. Who are you going to sell to, and how does that fit with India's own policies? And we heard already how India is looking to kind of incentivize certain sectors. Can you fit in with something that's a priority for the Indian government? And again, just to encourage people to look out for those opportunities to seek assistance from government or to tap into things that are a priority under the Comprehensive Strategic Partnership. And those are pretty clearly flagged in the press release and things from our respective prime ministers, and then, you know, on the social media accounts from the High Commission. So there's a lot of information out there to help people start to understand the India market, but we can't give anyone an easy answer. You know, each company really needs to invest time to understand where their niche might be, which state might be a good fit for them, which sector here in India.
Thank you for that, Sarah. That is appreciated. A couple more questions are now popping up, which is terrific. I think that probably demonstrates what's been said today certainly galvanised people's thoughts and mindset, which is terrific. There's a question here, and I'll read it out. It says, "Who's the point of contact in Western Australia?" Which sounds like possibly a great question for myself to answer, if I may. It's certainly not a Dorothy Dix question. The Australia-India Business Council in Western Australia is very active, working very closely with both the Indian Consulate in Western Australia, as well as with the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade Office in Western Australia, headed up by a person who also spent time in India. Her name is Sarah Hooper. So there are a number of people here in Western Australia that have cut their teeth in India that work very closely both with the state government office as well as the Indian Consulate, and of course further afield across into India, as we're having the discussion here with Sarah from her office. I'd also like to add that the Australia-India Business Council does have representation in India as well. In fact, I think I saw earlier that the representative for the Australia-India Business Council, Vinod Merchandani, has dialed in. He's based in Mumbai, and I know he will understand more about that, and we can certainly share information on that in the near future. Just hovering my mouse now over a other question that I think has popped up. Let's have a look. No, there don't seem to be any more there. So what I'm now going to do is pass across to Peter Ferd. Peter is the Vice President of the West Australian chapter of the Australia-India Business Council. And over to you, Peter. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. I get the pleasure of saying thanks to everybody for coming on board today. A lot of information shared. I think a lot of it very valuable, which I think people that were online will get some value from. And I know myself, even in the role that I do, learn a few things today, which isn't unusual. I learn new things every day. But a big thank you to both the Consul Generals, Ms. Dantu Charandasi and Sarah Kirlew, for their time today. Really appreciate the information that you've shared with us, which adds value to the AIBC's ability to share that information as well. Knowledge is power, as they say. Also, I want to thank our sponsors from today, which is AvidSys, who support us month in and month out. Really appreciated. Depender, I think, is online, so thank you very much. And also to Dickinson Wines. Mind you, we're having a virtual wine today, but anytime we have an open event, we're welcome when you're in Australia, Sarah. We'll make sure you get a nice bottle of red or something to sample while you're here. Again, Also to our committee that not in so much in WA, but on the East Coast who have helped us to get the webinar up and running. We've got Wendy Farrell and Vishal Kumar and Karishma, who have been absolutely sensational in getting this together. Going from a live event to a webinar at short notice is always a challenge, especially when the Vice President's been no help for the last 2 weeks with COVID issues in WA. We do have a few national events coming up, which you'll see scroll through the screen. There will be some there that are of interest, but the biggest takeout of today is really to understand the size of the opportunity there in India for Australian businesses and for Indian businesses coming to Australia to invest as well, and talking to people to get an understanding of where's your best point of entry. That's what the committee is all about. That's what the AIBC works towards. And we're really advocates to build that relationship on both sides of the Indian Ocean. But feel free to reach out to Mike or myself or through the national webpage, which was up there before. Any questions, we're more than happy to help. Thank you for your time today. Over to you, Mike.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Look,
everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Michael. And the
Thank you very much.
AIBC
Have
team.
a wonderful day, everybody. And just one thought I had as I was listening to both Consul Generals, I thought perhaps the title of today could have been changed to Diplomats in Dialogue in the South, given that we have the Australian Consul General in South India, we have the Indian Consul General in the Southern Hemisphere, and I believe that the Indian Consul General also hails from a southern state of India. But perhaps we'll leave that for next time. I do thank everybody for their participation, in particular, Dantu Charandasi. Thank you, madam. And Sarah, delighted that you could join us, given that you've only just come into station. It's been terrific seeing you again. We look forward to your ongoing support, and we certainly look forward to keeping your consulate very busy and doing what we can do to try and navigate and send export ready and investment ready opportunities to your part of the world. So once again, thank everybody. Wendy, thank you and the team for doing an awesome job as always. I think this is about the 35th or 36th webinar that the Australian India Business Council has done over the last 12 months. So we're certainly road to rubber on doing much more in helping many more businesses go global into incredible India. So have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you so much and take care. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Anakam, everyone.